Picture this. You're standing in the arrivals hall of Manila's International Airport. The air is thick with humidity. The noise of reunions and taxi touts fills your ears, and somewhere in the crowd, a young woman holds a sign with your name on it. She's smiling, professional, and welcoming. She's your tour guide for the week. What you don't know, what you'll never be told, is the story behind that smile. Today, we're going to tell you that story. And I warn you, this is going to make you uncomfortable. It should. This is the story of Maria. And it's the story of thousands like her. 4 years ago, Maria was 20 years old and full of hope. She'd just been accepted to a state university to study tourism management. For a girl from a small village in Leyte, one of the poorest provinces in the Philippines, this was everything. Her father worked in the rice fields, earning barely enough to feed the family. Her mother sold vegetables at the local market. Maria had 3 younger siblings, a sister who was brilliant at mathematics, a brother who dreamed of becoming an engineer, and the youngest, just starting elementary school. Maria was going to be the one who changed everything. She'd graduate, become a professional tour guide, and maybe work for an international hotel chain. She'd send money home. She'd put her siblings through school. She'd move her parents out of their house with a rusted tin roof that leaked every monsoon season. At university, Maria was exceptional. She spoke English fluently, studied Philippine history with passion, and learned about hospitality management and cultural tourism. Her professor said she had a natural gift for making people feel welcome, for telling stories that brought history alive. She graduated with honors. The future was supposed to be bright. But this is where reality enters the picture, cold and harsh. Maria's first job paid 12,000 pesos a month. That's approximately $215. In Manila, where she had to live to find work, her rent alone consumed half of her income. Food, transportation, necessities. The money vanished like water through her fingers. And then her father got sick. Chronic kidney disease. He needed dialysis 3 times a week. Each session cost money that the family didn't have. Without it, he would die. It was that simple, that brutal. Maria did the math. Her salary minus her own survival expenses left maybe 3,000 pesos to send home. That barely covered 1 dialysis session. Her father needed 12 sessions a month. Her younger sister needed glasses. Without them, she couldn't see the blackboard, couldn't study, couldn't hope to escape the same poverty that was crushing them all. Her brother was in his final year of high school. There were fees, uniforms, and school supplies. If he couldn't finish, years of sacrifice would be wasted. This is the mathematics of poverty. Not abstract, not theoretical, concrete, immediate, and utterly unforgiving. Maria started taking extra clients, working longer hours, and skipping meals to save money. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. And then she met Jürgen. Jürgen was a German widower, 63 years old, in Manila for a week-long cultural tour. Maria was his guide. She showed him Intramuros, the walled city built by Spanish colonizers. She took him to Rizal Park, told him about the national hero executed for demanding freedom from Spain. Jürgen was kind. He listened when she spoke. He asked thoughtful questions. At the end of the first day, he invited her to dinner. This wasn't unusual. Many clients wanted companionship in the evening, someone to eat with, someone who knew the city. Maria's company had policies about this. Maintain professionalism. Politely decline if you feel uncomfortable. Never accept invitations to private hotel rooms. But Jürgen was respectful. And Maria was hungry, having skipped lunch to save money. The restaurant he chose was nice, far nicer than anywhere she could afford. Over San Miguel beer and sisig, he told her about his late wife, showed her photos of his grandchildren in Stuttgart. He asked about her life. Really asked, really listened. When she mentioned her family, the medical bills, the struggle, something shifted in his expression. At the end of the evening, he said, "Would you join me for breakfast tomorrow, at my hotel?" Maria understood. She wasn't naive. She'd heard stories from other guides, warnings and whispers about what some women did. what some clients expected. That night, she walked along Roxas Boulevard, the bay breeze carrying the smell of Manila, street food, car exhaust, salt water, and poverty. She called her mother. "How is Papa?" Her mother's voice was tired. "He missed his dialysis yesterday. We didn't have money, he's very weak." Maria stood there, phone pressed to her ear, watching the lights of the city reflect off Manila Bay, beautiful and indifferent. She went to breakfast. What happened in that hotel room will leave to your imagination. What matters is what happened after. Jurgen left an envelope on the nightstand. Inside was 20,000 pesos, 1.5 of her official salary for one night. Maria counted the money in the taxi home, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't crying because of what she'd done. She was crying because she knew she'd do it again. Over the next 2 years, Maria perfected a double life. By day, she was still the professional tour guide, knowledgeable, cheerful, cultural ambassador of her beloved Philippines. She took pride in her work, in showing visitors the beauty of her country, from the chocolate hills of Bohol to the underground river in Palawan. But there was another tier of service, unspoken, negotiated through careful glances and subtle suggestions. Not with every client, not even with most, but enough. There were patterns she learned to recognize. Western men traveling alone, usually middle-aged or older, divorced or widowed, professionally successful but personally lonely. They'd linger after tours, ask her to dinner, seek companionship that went beyond sightseeing. Some wanted the fantasy of romance. They wanted to take her to nice restaurants, hold her hand, watch the sunset, pretend this was a real relationship, however brief. They needed to believe she cared, that they were special, that this wasn't what it obviously was. Others were brutally honest. They knew this was a transaction. They stated their terms, negotiated their price, and maintained emotional distance. In some ways, these were easier. At least everyone knew exactly where they stood. Most fell somewhere in between. They knew, but they didn't want to know. They paid, but called it a gift. They bought her time, but called it companionship. Maria became fluent in this complex language, reading what each man needed, adjusting herself accordingly. It was exhausting, maintaining these performances, these careful boundaries that could collapse or hold depending on what was required. The money changed everything. Her father got his dialysis. Her sister got her glasses, started excelling in school again. Her brother graduated from high school, enrolled in a technical college. Her family moved to a better house. But Maria changed too. The girl who'd left university full of idealism and hope gradually disappeared, replaced by someone harder, more calculating, more aware of exactly what everything cost, including herself. Robert Peterson arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Australian, 57, recently divorced, businessman from Sydney. 5-day cultural tour, standard package. Maria held her sign at arrivals, same as always, same smile. Robert was different from the first moment. He was kind, but his kindness felt genuine rather than transactional. He tipped well, but not ostentatiously. He asked her questions about Philippine history, politics, culture, and actually listened to the answers. During the first 3 days, he never once made an inappropriate suggestion. He treated her purely as a professional guide. Maria found herself relaxing slightly, enjoying the job the way she had when she first started, before everything became complicated. On the 4th evening, Robert invited her to dinner at a restaurant overlooking Manila Bay. She accepted, expecting the usual script to begin unfolding. Instead, over dinner, Robert talked about his life. His marriage of 25 years had slowly died from mutual neglect. His adult children, who barely spoke to him anymore. His fear of growing old alone in a house that was too big for one person. Then he said something that caught her off guard. "I know what happens here, Maria. I'm not a fool. I've traveled extensively in Southeast Asia. I see how the system works." Maria's professional mask slipped slightly. She started to respond, but he held up his hand. "I'm not judging you. I'm judging the system that puts you in this position. Your English is perfect. You know more about Philippine history than most university professors I've met. You're clearly intelligent, educated, and capable. And yet here you are, forced into situations that no one should have to navigate just to keep your family alive." The tears came before Maria could stop them. She never cried in front of clients, never. Robert handed her his handkerchief. "The world is broken, Maria. It's broken in ways that benefit men like me and destroy women like you. I have money. Not because I work harder than you, I don't. I work less hard. But I was born in a wealthy country to parents who could afford my education. You were born here. That's the only difference. And yet the system treats us as though I somehow deserve my comfort, and you deserve your struggle." He reached across the table, pressed an envelope into her hand. It was thick. "This isn't payment for anything. This is me acknowledging that the system is rigged, and you're doing what you must to survive within it. What you're doing for your family is noble, but you shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself for a broken system." That night, alone in her rented room in Quezon City, Maria counted the money. 30,000 pesos. Enough to cover 3 months of her father's dialysis. But more than the money, Robert's words haunted her. For 2 years she'd been telling herself that this was just pragmatism, just survival, just making difficult choices in difficult circumstances. But hearing someone else name the injustice of it, broke something open inside her. Maria couldn't sleep that night. She stood at her window, looking out over the lights of Manila, and asked herself a question she'd been avoiding for 2 years. What was she really? The labels the world might use: prostitute, sex worker, survival sex practitioner. None of them fit exactly, but all of them touched something true. She wasn't working in a brothel or standing on street corners. She was a licensed professional tour guide who sometimes provided additional services. But those linguistic gymnastics didn't change the fundamental reality. She was trading her body for money her labor alone couldn't earn. Was she a victim? Yes and no. No one forced her. She made choices. But were they really choices when the alternative was watching her father die, her siblings' futures crumble? Was she empowered? Some people might say yes. She was using the assets available to her to improve her economic situation, taking control of her circumstances. But empowerment didn't usually feel like this, like slowly erasing yourself, performing for strangers, splitting into multiple people to survive. Was she being exploited? Absolutely. But by whom exactly? By the individual men who paid her? Many of them were kind, respectful, lonely people seeking connection. By the tourism industry that pays poverty wages? By the economic system that created such vast inequality between nations? By a government that couldn't provide adequate health care or education for its citizens? The exploitation was real, but it was diffuse, systemic, and impossible to pin down to any single villain. And what about the men? Were they victims too, in their own way? Many of them were genuinely lonely, disconnected, seeking something real in a world that felt increasingly hollow. They weren't monsters. They were human beings with human needs. But they were also participating in a system that commodified desperation. Even the kind ones, even Robert with his philosophical understanding of systemic injustice, they were all benefiting from an enormous power imbalance. These questions had no clean answers. That was what made them unbearable. Her phone buzzed. Another booking request. Michael from California, arriving next week, 6-day tour. Maria stared at the message for a long time. She could decline. She could try to survive on her official salary alone somehow. Let her father miss dialysis sessions. Tell her siblings to drop out of school. Move the family back to the house with the leaking roof. Those were also choices, also forms of sacrifice. She opened her laptop and began researching San Francisco, where Michael's profile said he'd grown up. Clients appreciated personal touches, remembered details. It was part of being good at the job. The job. Whatever that meant now. Through her window, the lights of Manila spread out like fallen stars, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere in those millions of lights were other women making similar calculations. Overseas workers in the Middle East, enduring abuse. Factory workers in export zones, laboring for pennies. Domestic helpers sleeping on kitchen floors in Hong Kong apartments. Different specifics, same fundamental equation. Survival costs more than labor earns. Maria thought about the girl she'd been at university, idealistic and bright-eyed, who believed that education and hard work were enough. That girl was gone. In her place was someone who understood that the world was more complicated and more cruel than any textbook admitted. She typed her professional greeting, confirming the booking with Michael. In the morning, she would stand at another arrival's gate, holding another sign, wearing another smile, because this was what survival looked like. This was what it cost. So here we are, at the end of Maria's story. But before you click away, before you form your final judgment, I want you to sit with something uncomfortable. If you're a Western man watching this, especially if you travel to developing countries, ask yourself, have you ever benefited from this system? Maybe not in exactly the way described here, but in 1,000 smaller ways? When you stay in a hotel where staff work 14-hour days for wages that wouldn't cover a week's groceries in your country, are you exploiting them? When you eat at restaurants where servers smile and bow and compete desperately for your tips, are you participating in a system built on inequality? Here's the controversial truth. Everyone involved in these situations bears some responsibility, and yet no one is entirely to blame. Maria made choices. She chose this path, but calling them choices ignores that she was choosing between impossible options. That's not freedom. That's just different shades of desperation. The men who paid her made choices too. They chose to participate in a system where their economic power could purchase access to vulnerable women. Even the kind ones, even those who convinced themselves this was somehow helping, were still benefiting from massive global inequality. But here's what's even more controversial. The real villain isn't any person. It's a global economic system that creates such vast inequality that someone like Maria, intelligent, educated, hardworking, still can't earn enough through legitimate labor to keep her family alive. It's a system where a German retiree's pension provides more security than a Filipino university graduate's salary. It's a system where geography at birth determines your entire life trajectory more than talent, effort, or character ever will. And all of us, whether we're Maria or Jurgen or Robert, or the person watching this video, we're all caught in this system, making compromises, accepting injustices, trying to survive or find meaning or connection within structures we didn't create and can barely understand. So what's the lesson? For the men, if you travel to developing countries and you find yourself in situations where young women are offering you companionship, attention, or more, stop and ask yourself why. Not why they're offering, but why they need to. Recognize the vast power imbalance, acknowledge your part in this system, and question whether what you're doing is creating connection or exploiting desperation dressed up as choice. For the women, this isn't a judgment. Survival is survival. But know that you deserve better than this. The world should be structured so that intelligence, education, and hard work are enough. They're not. Not yet. But that's the world's failure, not yours. For everyone, the real solution isn't individual charity or personal morality. It's a systematic change. Economic structures that provide living wages, healthcare systems that don't bankrupt families, educational access that doesn't depend on wealth, and a global economy that doesn't concentrate prosperity in a few countries while condemning billions to struggle. Until then, we're all complicit. We're all compromised. We're all making calculations about what we can live with and what costs we're willing to accept. Maria stands at an arrivals gate right now, holding a sign, wearing a smile. Behind that smile is a human being making impossible calculations about dignity, survival, family, and the many different meanings of the word choice. The question isn't whether you judge her. The question is, what are you going to do about the system that created her situation in the first place? This story isn't comfortable. It's not supposed to be. But comfort is a luxury built on somebody else's suffering. The next time you travel, the next time you interact with service workers in developing countries, the next time you benefit from global inequality, remember Maria, she's real. There are millions like her, and your comfort is built on their compromises. What are you going to do about it? If you find this story interesting, then you should watch The Holiday Girlfriends in Southeast Asia. Click to watch now.